Khanna went on Democracy Now!, and he's leading now on an issue that's been off the radar of the media and everybody else in Washington, D.C. Take a look.
And this information that came to light in the Wall Street Journal reporting Vice President Mike Pence called Juan Guaido the night before he declared himself president of Venezuela, pledging U.S. support for his actions. Congressman Khanna.
Well, the Democrats should be appalled by that and criticizing that. I mean, for all of our legitimate concerns about Russian interference in our elections, where we get concerned if a journalist appears on Russian television and a member of Congress talks to them, imagine if someone were calling the opposition in our country. We would be furious, justifiably furious. And so it makes no sense that our vice president would be calling and interfering in politics in Venezuela. What we ought to be doing is working through international institutions and laws, calling for human rights, but not getting involved in a potential civil war. And again, this is no defense of Maduro. Everyone recognizes that there have been extrajudicial killings there, that his economic policies have led to hyperinflation. But the reality is that when we have intervened in places like Syria, in places like Libya, what has the consequence has been that things have gotten worse. And for some reason, the people who have led all these interventions are still able to dictate American foreign policy. It's almost as if failure is the qualification to be part of dictating what we should be doing in Venezuela.
And so what are you calling for in Congress? Among those who have criticized what the U.S. administration is doing, well, you have Dick Durbin, Senator Nancy Pelosi actually supporting Guaido. But then you have people like yourself, Ilhan Omar and others, Bernie Sanders, also critical of the Venezuelan government, but critical of what the U.S. is doing. What are you demanding in Congress right now?
Well, first, that the Democrats should speak up against this administration's effort to get us into another civil war. We have always, unfortunately, been too silent when these interventions start. We were too silent when Iraq was taking place. We were too silent in the intervention in Syria. We were too silent in the intervention in Libya. The neocons aren't silent, and that's why they often end up winning these arguments, because there's not progressive, strong opposition to us intervening. Second, we do have a pathway for a solution. Everyone knows that the only way that we are going to see greater progress in Venezuela is to have a negotiated settlement with the parties, to have an honest broker. Uruguay, Mexico, the Vatican are trying that. The United States can lend credence to that effort and be involved in that effort of trying to come to a negotiated settlement. And finally, these sanctions are not working. Even people completely opposed to Maduro's policies have said that the sanctions are only making matters worse. They're hurting the poorest of the poor in Venezuela, and we need to really look at ending those sanctions.
That was awesome. Massive credit to Khanna for leading on this issue. Also, massive credit to Ilhan Omar, Tulsi Gabbard, and Bernie Sanders. As far as I've seen, these are the only voices who are really speaking up on this issue and talking about it in any serious way. And it's important, and it's huge. And what you see so often is, first of all, Trump's like non-interventionist rhetoric. It's nonsense. You know, we're still in Syria. We're still in Iraq. We're still in Afghanistan. We're escalating with Iran. But also, what we're doing in Venezuela is terrifying because we're escalating with them. We have seized shipments of food going into a country that's starving. At the same time that we act like we care so much about Venezuelan civilians, which is why we're doing what we're doing, we are seizing shipments of food going into a starving country. If we really cared, not only would we not be seizing it, we'd be sending our own ships with a lot of food in there. So this is an attempt to squeeze out the regime. Doesn't matter what you think of the government in Venezuela. It's irrelevant to the question. The question is, does the U.S. have a right to intervene in these foreign countries? Does the U.S. have a right to wage economic warfare on innocent people? And the answer is no. And Khanna is one of the only people saying it. Again, Khanna, Ilhan Omar, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, these are the only people who've spoken up at all about it. But man, imagine if we had a Democratic Party where all the Democrats were arguing this. Imagine if we had a Democratic Party that was strong and robust in their argument against economic warfare waged on Venezuela, against intervention. I mean, you want to talk about election meddling. That's exactly the point that Khanna was making. Imagine some other country did that to us. We just are declaring, we're declaring Juan Guaido as president. That's not a thing. That's not how this works. You're not allowed to do that. That's not the way it functions. So credit to Khanna for speaking up on this issue. Unfortunately, I don't think too many other people are going to speak up on it, but at least we have a voice out there being strong, principled, and against intervention.